patterns.
Okay.
I'd go with the same thing.
Yeah. All right. So basically, when I really dove deep into like hypnosis and NLP and stuff, hypnosis came first, and it was done from a clinical standpoint, meaning they would use hypnosis and they kind of discovered it. And just so you guys know, this has always been there. We just never understood the technology and labeled it and gave it a meaning, right? So when people started doing the hypnosis thing, was really to get people into a particular state where they can have access to what we're dealing with here is the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, right? Subconscious, right? So when you're a kid, especially, right? These are always at play, by the way. Your subconscious mind is basically what governs your blinking, your heart beating, right? Your blood circulating, your heart pumping, all these things that imagine if you had to think about doing them, you'd fucking die, right? So effectively, the way the mind works is as much as possible on the conscious level, you can only handle, I think they said, 7 to 11 things actively, like in your mind. Oh, I need to go to the store. I need to do this. What's up, bro? Yeah, go ahead, man. We got more room over here. One second. So as much as possible, your system wants to push things into the subconscious, right? And when it pushes into the subconscious, right, it takes up less brain power and energy for you to operate as a human being, right? So your system wants to do this all the time, right? And they started discovering this when they did NLP. So tied to this, and we'll talk about it later too, is the 4 levels of understanding for a person. All this stuff I'm going to cover today, I'll jump around, right? If you guys ever have questions, raise your hand. I'm going to give you a lot of like basic stuff, right? Because there's so much like NLP, dude. If I really wanted to do a deep dive, I'd probably have to do an event like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day for like a week to like go over everything. Okay. So there's 4 levels of comprehension, right? The first one would be unconscious, right? And it's tied to what I just said, incompetence, right? If I'm incompetent in something, that means I don't know. So unconscious incompetent means I'm doing something wrong and I'm not aware of it. So imagine a new agent coming into the industry. 99% fall into that category, right? Because they have no idea what to expect if they're doing something wrong, what they're doing. So if I teach somebody how to be better at communication and they have no idea about sales, they don't even know that, as an example, if they walk up to somebody and they're too close to them, they have no idea that that's off-putting to somebody, right? So they're unconsciously incompetent. Then you have conscious incompetence, where now, okay, I'm doing something wrong, but I'm aware. Hey, I notice every time I walk up to somebody, they walk away. So I'm doing something wrong, huh? Because they get uncomfortable. That would be conscious incompetence, right? So that's step 2 in this level of change, right? We have 1 and we have 2. 3 now, right? Which is now we passed this barrier. It's called conscious competence, where now I know how to do it right, but it takes a lot of brain power, right? Like for me to do the proper body language when I door knock, I can do it, but I have to really think about it. And it takes a lot of my energy, right? And mental capacity. 4, which is the top, is unconscious competence, where now it's natural. You guys ever come across somebody that, and something you admire, athlete, speaker, actor, where it's like, damn, it's just, they even tell you, oh no, it's natural for me. Or you call them, what do you call them? A natural, right? And for many of them, they weren't born with it. They just were able to get to such a level of proficiency that they got to unconscious competence. So everything that you guys learn and do will follow this sort of type of structure where you're doing something wrong and you don't know. Okay, now I'm aware that I'm doing something wrong. Now I'm working on it. I go to being able to do it, but it takes a lot of effort and energy. And then, okay, now it's natural. So think about this with sales. Think about this with all the stuff when it comes to the systems in the business, and it'll help you. But from NLP, they broke it down because they started doing like a lot of research and doing like trials and saying, okay, what process does a human being go through mentally to really become proficient at something? Like, how do we learn? How do we operate? How does the mind operate? And this is a good structure, right? So a good thing you can do immediately with this is say, okay, let's take your sales skills. You can say, where do I fall in this? Right? It requires you obviously to be honest, but where do I fall? Right? And a lot of people normally are floating between these two, right? And they'll get stuck here where, okay, I'm doing something wrong, but they don't do anything about it. Or they're decent at it, but they never really get good because they don't do it enough. Right? Like think of cold calling or going door to door or just dealing with people like a listing presentation where it's like, all right, I need to show up and have a particular level of skill. Well, if I'm going on listing appointments and I'm never getting them signed, I'm here or here, right? If you go on 10 and you get 2 or 3 signed, you're probably in between. And most agents that I talk to, if they go on 10 listing appointments, they don't get more than 2 or 3 signed. Now, when I start working with them, or they hop on the coaching or really take it serious, now they start getting up here. You start getting to 8, 9, 10 out of 10, now you're up here. But that process takes a long time, because if you guys think of something, right? Let's think of skill level from, and this is NLP and not NLP, but it's a good frame to have. Think of this as like a skill meter. 1 being you suck, horrible. 10, you're the best in the world, right? 1 to 7 is a relatively quick process. That, like, let's say somebody comes in as a real estate agent. For me to get them to a 7, if I work with them at a high level, like they're a student, probably within a couple months I can get them to a 7, right? If I work with them closely, they're dedicated and they're committed. Now, when you start going from like 7 to 7.5 to 8 to 8.5, this now starts taking longer. It's just like getting stronger, right? A person goes to the gym for the first year, they make a ton of gains. Then after that, man, to get 10 pounds stronger took me 6 months or a year. Think of it the same way, right? So this is relatively easy, but what happens? An agent, as an example, gets a little like, oh, I figured it out, right? But they still don't realize that for me to even start making little jumps, I need to work really hard. So maybe going from getting 1 out of 10 listing appointments to 5, you do that in 90 days. But then maybe getting from 5 to 7 takes you 6 months or a year of hard work to get that percentage up 20%. Make sense? Right? So this is more of just like a mental concept when it comes to learning. And I think this is the framework that helps people have more patience and really see things for what they are. Because when you start using your mind in this way, it becomes clear, like, okay, where am I at and what do I need to do? And I need to be patient and understand there's a process here, right? Cool. All right, let's jump into it. So the distinction between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, when you do something enough, it goes here. And the whole goal is, if you guys pick 1, 2, 3 things, my sales skills, whatever it is, having conversations with people on the street, I want to take it from here to here as quickly as possible. That requires a lot of time and repetition, all right? So NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. I gave you guys a little bit of a background. Hypnosis started from a clinical standpoint to help people, right? To help talk them through certain things. Because when you get to the root of this, right, effectively what we want to do, like if you want to create a change, we need to find the moment of inception at the highest level if we want to create change. Meaning, let's say you hold a belief system today about money, right? Somewhere along the lines when you were growing up, something, someone, an organization, the people around you, either one time or multiple times, drilled a particular message or belief system into you. Now, for most of us, it's here now. We're all adults. You don't know until you start tracing it, right? But what they were starting to do with hypnosis and NLP was getting people in a relaxed state, asking them questions, getting them to a point where they could access their memory and find moments in time where certain phrases would come up. Because when you relax, right? Like a lot of times the impulse that you have, let's say somebody cuts you off and you yell at them, fuck you, right? That's a subconscious program response that says, when somebody does something to me on the road or makes me upset, I yell at them, right? Somewhere, either your dad did it, your mom did it, your cousin did it, somewhere it got, but you never stopped. That was just something that you learned by observation, right? So eventually through this technology, they were able to get people to remember a quote that their aunt said or something to find the root of this. And this is where they started helping people create change, right? Because you first have to be able to locate these things deep within the subconscious mind, right? Now, that's a process in itself, and I'm not going to walk you guys through NLP and hypnosis from a clinical standpoint, right? Because that would require you having like a practice and then having patience. That is all cool to know, but how is this applicable to real life, and how can we use it in our businesses and in our lives to create change, okay? That's really the focus that I want to kind of talk about with you guys for the next hour, hour and a half, because a lot of people are misunderstood about NLP and hypnosis. So hypnosis started, right? And then it birthed NLP, which is more of a practical technology, right? NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro-linguistic programming basically is, it's in there, neuro-linguistic programming. Neurological, linguistic, and then programming the body. We can use language and the mind to recreate ourselves, all right? So the human being, this is the pyramid of the human being right here, all right? And you learned this early on in NLP. At the core is your identity, right? I would write this down. At the core is your identity, meaning all the things that compose the identity. Again, this is what you believe to be your identity, and it's malleable. is at the core, right? Meaning if I want to change, I need to get to the root of where this is in my identity as a human being. What do I identify with, right? And a lot of times when you ask people, who are you? They'll start saying those things. I'm blah, 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 blah. Like if my identity, right? And this is how deep this shit goes. Up until 25, I was an athlete. I played high school, college, professional basketball, right? To the core, my identity was athlete. Now imagine if I held that transitioning into real estate and I never broke from that. Would I have been successful? No, because I would have believed what everybody told me. They view me and identify me as an athlete. What is that? You're not smart. You're not a salesperson. You don't wear a suit. You don't know how to run a business. You don't have the connections. You don't have the network. You're not built for this. You're built to dribble a ball, right? But that's the identity of athlete. Now, within that, there's good things. You're competitive. You're disciplined, which is how I looked at it, right? So you can find things within it. But the first understanding you guys need to have is your identity is determined by you and can be changed by you, period. And that was a tough one for me, because what happened and why did I have such a difficult time transitioning from being a professional athlete, then getting injured to getting into real estate? Because in my mind, I was like, well, I was crying saying, well, this is all I can do. This is it, right? Have you guys ever seen the movie, the football movie, Friday Night Lights? Where they follow that small team in Texas, like that high school team, and they're killing it and they're going to win state. Did you guys ever see that movie? I recommend you watch it because there's a really good moment where Friday Night Lights. It's like a small high school team in Odessa, Texas, some little town, but like that town shuts down on Fridays when they have their games, right? And it follows a lot of the players on the team. So one of the star players, a running back, he ends up getting injured, long story short, and he hurts his knee so bad he can't play anymore. And there's a really sad moment where he gets in the car with his grandpa and starts crying because he's like, well, what am I going to do? Like, all I can do is play football. There you go. So when you watch that movie, you'll see how most people live their lives versus the reality. In his mind, he believes my life is over. I'm 18. I got injured. I can't play football anymore. I'm fucked. That's what he's thinking. Yeah, it does. Right. And it did to me. I was depressed for like a year because I was like, fuck, dude, all I did was focus on, I can't do anything else. I finally broke out of it. Right. Because after feeling like shit for a year, I said, okay, fuck, I'm 25, 26. Like I need to change my fucking life. I can't sit here and be 50 years old and say, well, 25 years ago, if I hadn't gotten injured, I would be on TV. Right. But again, it starts with the understanding of that's not reality. They believe that. That's why. Right. So for us, a lot of the stuff that we do, like when we get up, let's say you guys have coffee. I don't know if you do or you don't. Right. Whatever it is, like think about what you do, like your morning ritual, and think about how much now, is that what you observe people doing? Is that what you read a book on? Why do you do what you do? Because all of that is tied in with this. I know people that if I got them to stop drinking coffee, physically, they would be okay. But mentally, they'll say shit like, I'm nothing unless I drink my coffee. Because it's that rooted into their identity. It has nothing to do with health or anything else. They'll even tell me, oh no, it tastes like shit, but this is me. I am coffee. Like I have to have it. Like think of an addict, right? Somebody who does cocaine or fucking smokes weed all the time or whatever, right? But who's addicted. It's because it's their identity. I mean, shit, listen to any song. I blaze, I do all this shit. Like people identify with this stuff and it becomes cool because now it's embedded into our lives and our culture. And now it's embedded in an identity. I talk about it. People clap for me like, oh, you smoke weed too? Yeah, let's hang out, right? See, now it starts building on itself. And it started with that. You see? So this is why every little thing you guys need to look at, because I mean, the big one is diet. That's a big one, right? Okay, if I follow the diet based on the culture, I'm supposed to have fucking beef every day and empanadas and all this shit. And again, I don't want to eat that stuff because it's not good for me, right? But again, if I go off this, it's like, well, that's what I'm about. I'm supposed to. That's what my culture is, right? All culture is what's passed down. And I'm not saying cultures are bad. There's beautiful things in cultures, but you need to understand the life that you want to live and where you want to go is what's in your current identity in line with getting that. Right? And you need to start to question it immediately because this is the root of everything. If I get you guys to start wearing a suit, as an example, but in your identity, you were like I was 10 years ago, I'm the athlete, it wouldn't work. I'm like, bro, give me some Jordans, a wife beater, and some sandals. I don't want to wear a fucking suit. I didn't even own a suit. I had to borrow one from my fucking dad. So the suit was like to here because my dad's shorter than me, right? But in my mind, I gave it so much resistance because I said, I'm an athlete, bro. I'm not a businessman. but you have the ability to change, right? That's what I'm hammering into you guys right now, because we overlook that. What do we deal with? Because this is the pyramid, and I'll give it to you. We deal with this. Oh, if I just, start waking up earlier, it'll be okay, right? Oh, I just need to think different. That's in the top half, right? Because everything builds on itself, right? Let's go through it. Identity, beliefs, values, thoughts, ideas, actions. Okay, think about all the stuff that they put out on social media. Most of it is here and here. A few might go here. Very rarely does it get here. But everybody runs to this stuff and they wonder why they're on the hamster wheel and they don't make any change, right? So what's next after identity? Beliefs. Well, you have a belief system. I'm religious. I believe this is this, this is this, this is that. So this is what's being under attack right now in society with all this stuff that you see in the media, and it's getting a lot of backlash from people because they're starting to attack people's beliefs. Like, think about some of the stuff that the government pushes that maybe religious people don't like. Well, it's a hard fight because they say, no, this goes against my beliefs as a human being. I don't believe in, killing animals or the abortion thing, right? For a lot of people, that's identity and belief, that whole argument, right? So the deeper you go, the more people hold on to it too, right? Have you ever gotten in a discussion with somebody about some of these things, like maybe their values, and they start to get very like, well, no, right? Like I always say, look at two religious people that have different religions talk, and after 5 minutes, well, fuck you. And then I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, but again, it's so tied into your core. Why? The moment you rip or change one of these things, by virtue of that, everything else has to change. Imagine if you identified, again, as a religious person, and then tomorrow you're like, okay, I'm not that religion anymore. Everything changes. How you view the world, how you view your life, your friends, the people you spend time with, the activities that you do. So again, when I talk to somebody, and you could even think of yourself in the business world, and I say, okay, you need to change everything. You need to start wearing a suit and getting up on time and going to the office and talking to people. That for them is, they're like, that's not me, bro. Right? And even though they might entertain it, because they never accept the change, like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Right? So think about this. What I would do as an exercise, right? You guys can do this after the event, is I want you to first, if you answer that question, who are you? What would you write down in regards to your identity? What do you identify with as a person now? Again, there's no right or wrong answers, but this is a self-assessment. What's my identity as a person? Right? So you can even throw a lot of symbols out, right? Like, let's say, okay, I'm Lamborghini and this and that, like what you like and what you identify with, right? Like a nice suit, I don't know, maybe a basketball. Like for me, I would put a basketball because that's still a part of my identity, right? And then the belief system, what do you believe in? Right? And think about all the hot button topics today. Okay, what do you believe in relationships? What's your belief system about what's your belief system about running a business? What's your belief system about your ethics and morals as a human being and how you live? And then actually writing them down. That way, if I asked you, you could present them to me. Because what happens in today's world? We want to keep everything private. Oh, I don't want to share that. You don't have to share it with the world, but you better know what it is, right? Same thing with your value, because values are predicated based on beliefs. Your value system will be predicated based on the beliefs and philosophies that you live by, right? I don't believe that we should hurt children, right? I believe that everybody should get a good education, right? All that stuff will build this, and then that builds the thoughts. So as we start getting to the surface level, right, now the thoughts that you have will be predicated on this. Think about when we open up our phone and we go on social media and you see some video, funny video, stupid video, violent video, right? The thoughts that you have on it are predicated based on this. Like, as an example, have you guys ever seen the videos where somebody's like skateboarding or snowboarding and then they get really hurt, like they'll break their leg or something? I know people that can watch that and laugh. I'm just like, fuck, I don't want to see it, right? But they have a different system here, right? They're the ones who will jump off cliffs and do all this shit, and they love doing it. I would do that, but I'm not like totally attracted to doing it, right? So they have different responses. So they have different thoughts and ideas about it, and then different actions, right? So when somebody comes to me and says, well, I want to make more money in real estate. What do I need to do well in real estate? That's why my answer is never what other people say. I want to get to the core of the person and ask, what's your business experience, right? What do you think you need to do? Just to see, because then that answer is going to tell me what they're thinking. So when you guys are talking with clients, right, a real world perspective of this, like if I talk to a buyer, one of the first questions I ask them is, what do you know about the home buying process? Just to see what they say. And you'd be surprised with the answers that you get. Then once you start listening to what people tell you, you'll understand why they give you so much resistance when you recommend the right thing to do. Because what do? We're like, dude, of course you need to get pre-approved. And some people give you pushback on that. Or you want to do a consultation with them and they give you pushback, right? But you don't know what their values and belief systems are about this stuff. What if you're dealing with somebody who was brought up being told, you'll never own a home? But now they're financially capable. They're still going to give you resistance because on the inside, they're like, no, right? So what's tied to that is this. This is a big thing that you learn in NLP. The map is not the territory, right? Territory is, let's call it the real world. The map is how we view it, how we process it, and our perspective on the world. Now, we all have different perspectives and we all have different maps of the world, right? If you ask us all, how does the world run? What does the average person think? We're all going to give different responses to that, right? And that's what this is. So when I deal with the client, I have to keep this in mind. I'm on the position of I know everything about real estate. They don't. But what's our assumption? Oh, well, I'm the agent. They're going to listen to me and do everything that I have to say. Well, that's not necessarily true. And when we navigate conversations with people, we need to keep that in mind. This is why I ask a lot more open-ended questions and will say things like, well, what do you know about the home buying process? How long do you think it's going to take? What are your expectations? What if you ask that and they say, well, I want you to call me twice a day, and like they make unrealistic demands? Well, you can handle it right there, right? But you have to be willing to ask these questions, and this goes outside of just the script that we use to talk to people, right? Now, what I like about this is that all sounds good, but now when I talk to people, this is one of the first things that allowed me to talk to customers and not take things personal anymore, because they have a different map. Right? I have my way of viewing the world in the home buying and selling process, or whatever you're applying this to, right? So now I can listen to somebody and say, okay, they think different. They have different identity, values, and beliefs. Okay, I need to find out what that is. Now it becomes an understanding process more versus, well, I don't like the way they're talking to me, right? Because again, let's say you're dealing with a home seller who was brought up like I was, don't sign any contracts. Be very careful when you sign a contract. Because I signed that one contract at one time and we got screwed. So if you're dealing with that person, you think they're just going to be like, oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, right there, 6%, no problem. They're going to tell you, I want to think about it and all this other stuff. So again, knowing this, I have a lot more patience and I'm a lot smoother when I talk to people. And when they say things, this is the biggest one. Have you guys ever been with a buyer or a seller and they say something or give you an attitude and you get a little upset internally? Has that ever happened to you?
What kind of attitude?
It could be anything, something that they say, right? And your response is maybe you take it personal, or you get a little bit mad at them or upset. Has that happened? Has that happened to you guys? Yeah, right? Well, that's kind of tied to this. If I remove that personal aspect of it, I mean, I'm not taking it personal. You can be rude, or anybody could be rude to me, but I'm still going to respond the right way.
Oh, it would be an agent. I remember an agent.
Or an agent, yeah, it could be that too. It's like, I've had, dude, and agents are worse. I've had agents, oh my God, well, I've been in the business 20 years. Why are you doing this and this and that? And I say, look, I can effectively detach from the situation and not take it personal, understanding this, right? Because I always find out later. I remember one agent almost drove me crazy, and at the end, she finally admitted to me, I'm going through a divorce. And I said, oh, no wonder, fuck. I was like, I'm not your fucking husband. You know what I mean? Like, leave me alone. But I understood why now. Every time she talked to me, she was like nagging and texting me 3 times a day, and oh, we're gonna cancel. And then 5 minutes later, oh, everything is okay. I'm like, this lady's fucking crazy, right? But at the time, I didn't understand this stuff. And when I started learning it, I was like, no wonder, man. No wonder. This makes sense. This makes sense, especially this. I was like, I would have to assume that she has the same emotional intelligence that I have for her not to respond that way. I would have to make all these assumptions, because what do? We expect people. This is the key. We expect people to behave a certain way, and everybody's their own free thinking. They all have free will, and every person, again, is different than us. We could have an etiquette. This is why we set standards. Hey, this is a professional meeting. We're all going to dress a certain way, address each other a certain way, right? But that doesn't mean that people have to abide by it. We create that to have a general kind of rule for people, but that doesn't mean that they're going to follow the rules. So just like when you're talking to somebody, again, because we're the ones who are originating communication with people and expecting them to work with us on a buying or selling side, we need to set things up to get them to the finish line. Meaning you have to be able to deal with that type of stuff. and create a process that allows you to push them through, right? And the more understanding you have of some of these things, and we're going to talk about more right now, the easier it's going to be for you to deal with people and navigate all this craziness, right? Because all the stuff we talked about earlier too, subconsciously, they just reject things or say things that, again, for us might not be a problem, but we need to recognize, okay, they're different and they have different beliefs, identities, and values, and they're going to think about things differently, right? Same thing with, getting pre-approved, right? A lot of people have misconceptions about credit. Oh man, it's going to ruin my credit. All the stuff that they think about, right? So it's up to us through the process. And I'll give you guys some examples later of things that you can say to help people with these things. All right. Any questions so far? Because I know this is a lot, but when you go over NLP, it's like a bunch of shit. And I'm trying to break it down, and separate it as simply as possible, but it is a lot. You have any initial questions on any of this stuff, y'all? Anything? No? Okay, cool. Is this making sense?
It's the fundamentals.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I do my best not to teach it in an academic way because I think that's the boring way to do it. But I'll give you some more examples too, right?
Just to clarify, identity is pretty much the building block, the foundation. The
core of everything. Because when you have a value or belief, it's attached to your identity. And a lot of times people get defensive because they feel like you're attacking their identity. And it could be anything. It could be your profession. It could be your culture, your race, or whatever it is. And when people feel like they're attacked at this level, they'll very strongly hold it, right? And that's why traditionally, when you think of like political conversations or religious conversations, those seem to be the most like volatile because people, again, it's to their identity. Oh, I'm this, I'm a Christian, I'm this. And when you attack it, well, in their eyes, they feel like you're attacking them. Then they get very defensive.
Or the other way around.
Yeah. Or no, you need to be like us because, right? Yeah, it's the same thing. But again, the deeper you go, the more you'll defend it because it's tied to their identity, right?
And I do like the idea that it is a pyramid, so you have the foundation as the identity. And then, like you said, if you switch that, then everything else would have to switch as well. So that's why.
Yeah, and that's the core reason, like I told you guys, that people resist change. Because if I get you to agree that you want to change your identity, well, by default, everything has to change. And that effectively shatters your current reality. That might get rid of your friends. You might have to do completely different things, carry yourself a certain way, dress a certain way, do completely different actions every day. And like when I started in real estate, for me, everything had to change. I wasn't used to getting up early and reading books and doing all that stuff, but I had to start doing it, studying sales, going out and going door to door and all these things that I had never done. So my identity had to flip 180 degrees. Now, the reason I didn't resist it as much is I committed and accepted to it from the beginning, but most people don't do that, right? They resist it. Oh, well, okay, I'll do that, but I don't want to do this. And they try to pick and choose. But if you want to change, you have to accept everything that comes with it. And that change is what scares people. Why? We as human beings, we fear the unknown. When we don't know, we fear it, right? If I drop you guys into a pitch black field and I'm like, hey, don't worry, nothing's going to happen. If I leave, you're going to be scared. After you've been there a day, 2 days, 3 days, now you're like, okay, nothing's happened. Even if I told you, hey, everything's going to be okay. There's no animals, there's no nothing. If it's pitch black and you don't know, you're going to be scared until you're familiar with the environment. We fear the unknown. Why do people fear public speaking? Yeah, it is the unknown. We don't do it, right? And you have the fear of judgment and all. Why do we fear death?
No one really knows what happened now.
Exactly, right? So all of that is traced with the unknown, right? And again, I tell people we could beat ourselves up about it, philosophizing about it. I just say, I'm okay not knowing. And that takes a lot of the pressure off. I don't know. We'll see. Because people ask me that all the time. What do you think happens like when we die? I'm like, I don't know. We'll find out.
I remember my dad got so mad at me one time. My little brother asked me if I believed in aliens, if there's aliens. And I said, I don't know. And my dad said, what do you mean you don't know? No, there's no aliens. And I was like, I just said I don't know.
But see, that could be one of these things, right? It could be. You never know. Okay, so maps onto the territory. Now, one thing we need to become very good at understanding, and this is something I do a lot when I work with clients, is it's called reframing, right? So basically what a reframe is frame means frame of mind on the situation, right? So what are some examples I can give you? Something happens, right? There's a change in the real estate market, right? And then the news puts something out. You talk to your client, they say, oh, well, I don't like what the news said about the market. So I'm going to hold off and I'm not going to buy, right? And let's say you look at the information that the news said, and it's really based on their situation, no reason for them not to buy, right? Well, effectively, I need to be able to reframe the information. So frame of mind doesn't mean that you change the facts. It's you change the label and the meaning on the situation or whatever it is, right? So as an example, well, going back to like me, well, you're not going to do well in real estate, bro. You're an athlete. You don't know anything about real estate business. You don't own a suit. That's not your world. My reframe to that is, well, when I look at it, I built up a lot of traits as an athlete. I'm extremely competitive. I'm disciplined. I show up earlier than everybody else and I leave later. I'll work harder than them. I don't have to climb a corporate ladder, right? I can outwork everybody and I get paid based on my production. So if I sell more, I make more. So if anything, I'm built for this. That's a reframe. Now, you can make a case for either one, right? You could tell me I'm not experienced and I'm not good. But at the same time, the opposite of what I said is also true. I did build up those skills and I can use them. So now it becomes a game that I call like choose your own adventure, right? Which one do you want to go with, A or B? That's all a reframe is. And the person who has the most conviction when they give the reframe is the one who's going to win. And many times when we talk to clients, their story beats your reframe or our lack of reframing the story, right? So let's say somebody, here's another real estate example. Let's say somebody's going to sell a home, right? And you guys might deal with this or you have dealt with this. And let's say this home is $500,000, right? And they're going to sell and then move into a neighborhood that's $750,000, right? Well, you know, guys, the prices are going up, you know, so I'm going to hold off and I'm not going to sell. It doesn't make sense. Now, what would you guys say if they told you that?
Repeat it.
They want to sell and move here, right? Let's say the market is going up. A lot of people, from their perspective, a homeowner will tell you, I don't want to wait. The prices are getting too crazy because this home is going to go up in price.
I would ask them what they think the prices will be when they do want to move.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah, cool. So basically, like now, when I look at this from a logical standpoint, it actually does make more sense for them to move because they'll make more money. And I'll tell you guys why. But again, this is a reframe. They view this bad. This to them, this means don't move. And think of a million examples that people give you. The interest rates are too high, all this stuff, right? So when I look at this, I say, look, you want to accept it at face value. Hey, I talked to the client, they say they don't want to move, right? Now, when you're a beginner in sales, you'll go off what people say, right? Effectively, what I need to do is find out what their goals are when it comes to real estate, but make sure that I'm giving them the right information, right? So if they really want to move, I would say, look, how much have home prices gone up in the last year, right? And let's say for this example, they go, oh, 10%. The news said 10% over the last year, right? And it's projected to go up another 10% in the next 12 months. So we'll say 10%, right? Well, what's 10% of 500,000? What's 10% of 750,000? So if they sell, right? And let's say they sell now and they move here, how much equity are they going to gain in a year? 75,000. Compared to this, which would be 50,000. So technically they got a net $25,000 more equity gain here by moving now versus later, right? So that's just, again, we can talk more about it, but that's just one example of how I take that same situation where they say, well, no, I don't want to move, to, well, if we really look at it, right, it's all that was effectively at the core, besides the information, was a reframe. I took a situation that they viewed a particular way, gave them a new information, and they changed their mind. That's a reframe, right? Oh man, think about the last time something bad happened to you. Let's say it didn't work out with a client. Like a big one that I think of is when I walk away from a client or I cancel a deal, I walk away from a listing appointment and I decide, you know what, I don't want to work with them. How do most agents take that? Oh man, I lost the deal, right? Oh man, I was going to make $10,000 selling that home. They don't look at the other side of it. That person would have been a headache. They weren't realistic. They wanted to list the home at a price that was too high. It's not going to work, right? But if I take that first one that most agents think like, oh, I lost a deal, what does that do to you? Like, yeah. Have you guys ever had that in your mind? Because I did when I was a new agent all the time. Like, oh man, you know, that person's not going to do the deal. And then for fucking weeks, you're like, I'm going to lose my car. I'm going to lose my house. I can't pay the rent, right? But why? Can you relate to that one a lot? Like where your mind? Yeah. You see, yeah. But all that require, and it's simple, but it's not easy, right? But we have to reframe it, because that one mistake in our viewpoint, and again, either one can be right, technically, right? But you need to ask yourself this. This is the end all be all. Which frame of mind, which way of thinking leads me closer to where I want to go? And that's the one I need to choose. Because what we've done is we've conditioned ourselves. This is where the NLP comes in. We've conditioned ourselves to only look at, in that example, right? We'll say worst case scenario versus best case, right? And what do most people do? They only think of the worst case. Well, what if it doesn't work out? What if I lose money? What if this happens? What if there's a fucking earthquake? What if there's a hurricane? What if the world ends? I deal with that all the time when I talk to clients and potential students who come into my coaching. They always talk about the worst case. And I'll say, okay, you gave me the worst case. What's the best case scenario? What if you go on 5 listing appointments and you get 4 of them? Is that possible? And they're like, yeah, it's possible. It's also possible that you get 0, but why are you only focused on 0, dude? And then when you look at it, all that is it's this, it's conditioning. They've subconsciously conditioned themselves to think only in the worst case in the negative way. But everywhere you look, isn't that what you see? Your phone, full of shit. Most people's conversations, full of shit, right? Meaning, worst case. Somebody gets a flat tire. Oh, why does this always happen to me? Why today, right? They start getting into that talk. That's this. And when you continuously feed that to your subconscious mind, what happens here?
You identify with somebody that deserves that always.
Yes, and you're speaking about it, you're thinking about it, and now when they talk about the law of attraction, that's all this is. How I view the world, how I speak about it, and everything moving up is what I get. So when I started making goals in the beginning, right, I said, what do I want my identity to look like? And as I started looking at everything, how much money do I want to make? What does my day look like? How do I want to dress? Who are my friends? And I made that very clear in my mind, and everything started with that. How I speak, right? What I'm doing, where my business is at. I was crystal clear about everything. And I said, okay, everything needs to be built off that. So as an example, my belief system about money has to change. Because right now, I said at that time 10 years ago, I'm cheap. I can't be cheap anymore. If I want to be a millionaire, I can't be fucking cheap. I used to be the guy that would go to the hotel back when I lived in LA. I would go to the hotel and you could pay like $2 for, the VIP parking. I would park like a mile away to save the $2 and then brag about it. Oh, I saved $2. I was like, bro, that's not a millionaire. That was me being broke trying to save $2. Okay, I don't have the money yet, fair, but I need to change the way that I think. So what did I start doing? I started parking and paying the $2 and getting okay with doing that, because the version of me that made $1 million would pay the fucking $2. I started small. I couldn't go to the club and spend $500 or $1,000 on a table, right? I didn't have the money, but I started with small things to start to change this and say, okay, I paid the $2. What changed? Well, now I didn't have to fucking walk a mile, right? The person took the car, they bring it back, they treat me differently, they speak to me differently. It's a different experience when I pay the $2. Oh, okay, now I'm getting it. Now all these things start to change around your belief system around money because you started to do things differently, right? But it first started with the idea, I want to be a fucking millionaire. What changes when I'm a millionaire compared to now? Am I getting up at fucking 10 a.m.? Am I fucking glued to my phone scrolling? No, I'm not, right? So going back to the reframing, right? Would you guys agree with me that most people that we deal with, maybe not most, but a good chunk of the clients that we deal with are always thinking about this? So it would, meaning the worst case scenario, right? They always think the worst thing that can happen. Oh, what if we don't find a house? What if we don't find the right home, right? So what you need to work on to make yourself more effective is say, okay, when I have these examples like this one or any one that you get frequently, what else can I say to point out the other side? How can I reframe this for them? Right? What can I say and what can I do? They have A, which is the worst case. How can I present my case for B? Because when people move, they buy a home, they sell a home. Are they really wanting the worst case scenario? No. They want it to be smooth. They want it to be great. They want to find their dream home. They want to sell for the most money. They want it to be a good transaction. They don't want any hiccups. They want the inspection to come back. Like, that's really at the core what they want, but they only talk about this. Now, when you ask questions to people and you really dig deep about this, like let's say they give you a worst case scenario. Well, how do you know home doesn't sell? I start challenging that. You really think it's not going to sell? Why would you think that? Is another one I ask people. Yeah. Why would you think that? Well, it's interesting you say, what if it doesn't sell? Did you know? And this comes with you being an expert. Did you know inventory is extremely low right now? Meaning there's very few homes for sale. You think that's going to increase your chances to sell or decrease it? If inventory is low, if it's a seller's market. Oh, but I don't hear that in the news. Right, but this is the facts. This is the data. Is it possible? Maybe. Well, yeah. If we get a buyer and then they pass away, okay, we have to cancel the deal. If there's a hurricane that wipes out all of Florida, it won't sell. But what do you think the odds are of that? Now I'm being funny, right? But I'm willing to present these different frames of mind to people to get them to accept it. Now I'm not forcing it on people, right? But the thing is we never bring them up, or we get a little scared. Oh, I don't want to say anything that might offend them. Right? All I'm doing is presenting B. They argue case A, which is the worst case. I argue B, which is an alternative. It doesn't even have to be the best case. It's just an alternative. This is what gets people's minds to consider. That's the word. I want them to consider something different, right? And this begins the process, because when we start doing this more and more with your clients and reframing over and over, eventually they start falling into your frame and believing what you say. Why? Because it starts to happen. When you work with a client, a buyer, or a seller, you're working with them over weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, sometimes 2 or 3 months. And when I'm continuously doing it and the process is affirming what I said, now they're building trust with you. Now they're going to fall more into your frame, and it's going to be easier to deal with them, because now when I speak, they listen, versus challenging me with what they think is going to happen, right? Now, I'm bringing this up from a real estate standpoint, but this first starts with us, guys. Right? As an example, if you can't effectively reframe certain things in your life or your belief systems, it's going to be impossible for you to do it to somebody else. This is what I love about NLP, is it focuses primarily on you first. And I say, handle your shit first, then you can handle other people, right? And this is why, like, this is like a deep dive you guys have to do. And then put pen to paper and say, okay, let me take a valuation of where this is now and what I would like it to be, right? Because if right now in your identity, you're not a good conversationalist, you need to change that immediately if you want to do well in real estate. If you're not a good communicator, you will not do good in real estate. You guys know that, right? That's not a surprise to anybody here, right? You don't have to be a wizard, but you have to be a good, solid communicator with people. They need to feel comfortable with you, right? They need to feel happy in your presence. They need to trust you as an expert. That's going to require a certain level of communication. But if in your identity, you're like, oh, I'm an introvert, I'm not a talker, I'm the wallflower, I don't have a lot of energy, I'm not a good storyteller, but that's your identity, then good luck. You're going to have to change that, right? And you have to begin the process. Okay, so how do I change it? Well, first, I need to change my beliefs and values around communication. So I would challenge you and say, is communication a skill that can be learned? Yes. It's a science that's been broken down. Do I need to be 7 feet tall or an athlete or any of that to be a good communicator? No.
How long did it take you?
To get what I consider good? Years, man. Years.
10 years, 5 years?
Man, I'm still a work in progress now, but to get to a point where in real estate, I felt confident, probably like 1.5 years or 2 years of working on it. Doing public speaking, studying, and doing all this stuff and talking to a lot of people every day. I would do prospecting. I would go out at night, a couple nights a week, to talk to people and networking events, just because I wanted to get good. It took years, bro. It took years. But that's, like I said, there's no destination. You just keep getting better and keep getting better. But eventually you get to a point where you're so much better than everybody else that now the stuff that you used to be hesitant about now is easy, right? It's easy. So, but that goes back to this. And when I talk to people, I get that from them. Like, I finally get them to admit it. I don't see myself as I'm not blank, right? That's why one of the tattoos I got is I am, because what you say after that is extremely powerful. I am. People hit their toe. I'm an idiot, right? And we do that all the time. You're conditioning yourself by doing it. So if I can handle myself and change and be malleable and make my identity better and more like, again, what your vision is, it's all predicated on what your vision is. Where do you want it to be later? How do I want to improve my identity? What do I want to change? Right? Because there's a lot of stuff that you can change. And you need to look, okay, here, a year from now, I want to be making this much money or doing this. What needs to change here? And for many of us, for sure communication, for sure our belief system around money, right? the amount of work that it's going to take, who we associate with, the standards that we have for our relationships and our friendships, all of that stuff has to change. Think about the 5 people you spend the most time with right now in your life. And think about what you contribute to them and then what they contribute to you. And ask yourself if the future version of you, if that makes sense or that has to change. Because that was one of the first things that had to change for me. I had a bunch of friends that were athletes or ex-athletes, but drinking, smoking, bullshitting, not getting their life together. I had to get away from them. I love those guys because we played basketball together for years. I knew them for a long time, but I was like, spending time with them isn't getting me where I want to go. It takes me back, right? One night of hanging out with them, my body feels like shit for 2 days. Drinking, smoking, and doing all that, staying up too late, right? Then it throws my next day off. I don't feel like talking to people. I don't feel good. I'm throwing up, right? Not good, right? Cool. So when it comes to this, I would like, as an exercise for you guys when you leave, I would come up with common real estate scenarios where buyers and sellers give you problems and come up with your own reframe of it. Well, this isn't the ideal house. Well, you can build equity here, qualify for more, right? And then maybe end up getting an even better house than you wanted originally. That would be a reframe of, well, we need to find the perfect home, or it's not good enough. Well, build some equity, right? Build some equity. You'll be able to qualify for more. Your credit score will go up, and then you'll be able to buy an even better house. And then who knows? Maybe you'll be able to keep this one and rent it out and still get the house that you want. And now you have an investment that's paying you, or an asset that's building up equity for you, right? That would be a reframe of that. So think of all these common scenarios where people give you excuses or say things and say, how can I change the frame of mind on this? How can I change the perspective on this? Because that's all that is, right? And it's a tool that you can use, but most importantly for yourself, right? All right, so the next thing I kind of want to touch on a little bit is anchoring and associations. Have you guys ever heard of anchoring?
Yeah.
Anchoring is this. Let's say, like for me, right? If I smell a certain food, I get taken back to being a kid, right? Meaning that scent is anchored in a memory that you have from when you were a kid or some moments, right? You were with your family, something like that, right? That's an anchor, right? Maybe when you were a kid, you watched a particular movie or you read a story and there was a character that when you saw him or you heard the name, it made you feel strong, right? Maybe, I don't know, maybe you like the X-Men, or like there I have a samurai, right? Maybe when you watch a samurai, you're like, oh man, I just feel like I want to fight. It does something to you. That's an anchor point, right? Now, the interesting part is we create these. Other people create them, but we can create them for ourselves. And for a lot of people, it's the opposite, meaning they have a lot of bad or negative anchors, right? Like to a lot of people, when they spend time with their family, it's a negative anchor. They don't like their mom, they don't like their dad, they don't like their cousins, right? And the first step of this is becoming aware of it, but the second one is how can I effectively use anchoring to help me, right? So think of something like, for the average real estate agent, talking to people, making phone calls, doing open houses, you know, going door to door makes them nervous, or I don't want to do it, right? So effectively what you would want to be able to do is create an anchor to get you in a particular state mentally to feel good and do it.
Isn't it the same as bees?
It's
Similar?
I mean, it's different. This is a technique. This is just a complete change, right? So let's say,
trigger almost.
yeah, you could think of it, but it would be like a self-created trigger, right? Because the belief is much deeper than that. This is just a technique. So ideally, yeah, I want to be in a position where my belief system allows me to do whatever I want, sure. But while you're changing it, you might have things that an anchor will help you with, right? So let's say I want to do a public speech, right, to 100 people and I'm feeling nervous, right? I can create an anchor. So there's an exercise you can do. Maybe what I'll do is I'll find a video that I did, or a deep, like 2 or 3 minute section where I did this, and I can send it to you guys and you can do the exercise, right? But basically what you do when you create an anchor is you think of a time, like let's say I want to build confidence, like I want an anchor for confidence. So when I do the anchor, I feel like very confident, right? What you do is you think back to a time of when you were super confident. Maybe when you won a championship, you got a listing, when that moment when you were like, yes, right? you would think back to that time and then you would create the anchor, right? So what I would do is in my mind, I would think of, okay, I feel confident. And in my mind, I would create, and this is the easiest exercise. You create a circle on the ground, right? This is the way you do it. And then it has a color. And for everybody, the color's different. Let's say it's red. And when I create the anchor in my mind, I have the confident feeling, I step into the circle. And when you step into the circle, you want to do a physiological cue. For me, it was doing this. It was clenching my fist. For some of you, it might be this. It might be this. I don't know. It might be hugging yourself. I don't care. Yeah, it could be anything. You do this, you do this, you do this, right? So in your mind, when you step into that circle, you do that. It's like, boom, that's your trigger. And that exercise, you do it over and over. So I picture myself stepping into the circle and doing this, right? You don't even have to step, right? But you do have to do the movement. For me, it was this. I would clench my fist. So even to this day, when I clench my fist, I get the feeling of confidence. And I made that anchor 9 years ago. In 2014, I made that anchor. And I don't have to close my eyes. I can just do this. And like literally feel the emotion shoot up in me. So the couple times when I was new and I had to make a phone call. I'm like, fuck, man, I don't want to make this call. I was like, all right, cool. I would get the confidence and I would call, right? Now, later on, to your point, yes, my belief system changed about sales and communication. It's not a problem. I don't need to do the anchor to make calls anymore. But back then, I needed it because I was still scared, you know? So this is like a good way to utilize reframing, but also create something where in your control, I can build the confidence. Now, it could be confidence. It could be anything, right? You fill in the emotion that you want to create, right? So remind me, guys, like you can email me or text me and I'll send you, I think I created like a video or something explaining that in detail, so I can send it to you guys. Association. So association is when you view something, when you hear something, a symbol, a label, like an association, like the frog with the weights, right? You all have an association about a frog. Maybe a frog is disgusting to you. Maybe you really like a frog and you want a pet frog, right? There we go, yeah. And there's associations, whether you'll think of things, you'll get an emotion, right? So this is powerful because that's a tool that you can use, right? So let's say I invite a customer here and I'm gonna put them in my office. They're gonna make associations about everything. If you have an office, what's the association? You must be successful or you're a legitimate business, right? Another one I understood is, if you go to like a doctor's office or a lawyer's office, what do they have behind their desk? All their certificates, right? Oh, I graduated from Harvard, right? So the association with the certificates is you're an expert. You know what you're doing. So what did I do? When I first started promoting all my stuff online, in the initial videos, all my certificates in NLP and hypnosis and all the real estate stuff that I did, I put it because I know people associate that with, oh, he must be good, right? So for you, it starts with you. What associations are powerful to you? Right? And that's something you need to come up with because in your environment and in what you do. So for me, right, when I first got into the business, I really wanted to handle money, right? I was sick of being fucking broke or making money like I did in basketball, but spending it like an idiot. And I said, I want to make money and master this thing. So for me, one of the goals was getting a Lamborghini. I was like, man, right? Like, so what did I do? That's an association of success and prestige to me and mastering money. Everywhere you looked, you would see a Lamborghini. When I woke up, when I opened my eyes and my ceiling, I taped a Lamborghini. The background on my phone was a Lamborghini. When you went to my bathroom where I would brush my teeth, picture of a Lamborghini. In my suit coat, I would carry a picture of a Lamborghini. When I was going door to door, I would look at it. Right? The vanity mirror on my car, I put a little picture of a Lamborghini there. So the mirror was here, I put the little picture of the Lamborghini. That level of obsession. Why? The association. Every time I looked at it, opened my phone, looked at it, woke up, I was like, let's get to work.
What happened after possession?
After I got it, well, then there was the next thing, right? There was the next thing. But that drove me so much. Now, for you, it might not be that. You might not care. But what is that for you? And it could be multiple things. But I was always looking at it because the association for me was the life that I want.
So how was it the feeling when you went from Lambo to whatever you have now?
Well, now I'm not even really a big car guy, man.
How is that?
You know? Well, as you start to accomplish things and grow, you also change. You start to change.
So you just
And
realize that it doesn't mean nothing?
it was a goal. And after having the car for about 2.5 or 3 years, I said, man, like I'm proud that I achieved it. I drove the car. I enjoyed it. I don't want it anymore. Yeah. Now, where that becomes a problem is people get their identity. Yeah. Oh, I need the Lambo to show people I'm successful, right? Yeah. But to me, that's the ultimate form of, I had fun with it. Good. I accomplished the goal. Go. Because
it's very hard for many people to
it is.
the properties or
100%, bro. Yeah. And it started being real to me. I was like, man, every time I drive, my fucking back hurts because the car is so low. It's like, you're tall too, bro. So it's like this isn't good. I'm not enjoying it anymore. And then I started asking myself, I was like, well, why am I holding on to it? And I couldn't give a good answer. I was like, well, if I did, it would be because I'm attached to it. And it's a weakness now because I have to show the world that I'm successful, right? So I got rid of it, right? And that changed. Even now, recently, I had more cars. I sold them. But because of COVID, the prices went up. I made a profit on all my cars. I sold my Porsche. I made like an $80,000 profit on it.
Which one you had?
I had a Porsche 911 GT3 RS. I bought it for $130,000. I sold it for $205,000. I had a Supra, an old Supra that I bought for $20,000. I sold it for $85,000. And then I used that money to buy more property.
Also GTR or something?
Yeah. I sold that to get the Lamborghini. That was the stepping stone, right? So, things change, but that's a part of the evolution. But even now, for me, certain things in the business or lifestyle things that I want, like one of the big ones for me at the beginning was, I'm going to keep working and doing what I do, right? But I want to get to a point where I have the ability to do whatever I want, right? Because even back then, I had to be in the office. I had to make the calls. I had to do all this. Now I'm getting closer and closer. I'm not there yet, but to the point where I could literally do whatever I want. Like I could wake up whenever I want. I don't have to do anything. And I'm doing it because I want to do it. In the beginning, we do everything because we need to. Hey, I need to make the calls to grow my business. Hey, I need to meet the client. I need to do this. So that's a big one for me now. Not that I won't do anything, but just having the ability to do it is a big one for me, because then I can say I have complete autonomy. I have complete control of my life, versus before I had to do things. Now, if I choose to stay disciplined, it's because I want to be disciplined. If I go to the gym and build my body, it's because I want to. If I do the training, it's because I want to, right? It's not because I have to. And that to me is a difference. That shows your dedication, right? So it's evolved and changed for me, but man, even thinking back, like when I didn't have the Lamborghini, that was one of those things where I was like, oh, right? Like, fuck. So even if I felt down, I would look at it, energy, right? I was out door knocking, it's hot. Okay, I got to do 20 more doors. Let's go. Like always. And then when I started making money, right, I would carry cash on me. I would carry like $1,000 or $2,000 in cash, right? Because when people were rude to me, it would still hit me a little bit back then. But what would I do? I would pull out the money and, okay, I'm good. Right? For me, that worked. For somebody else, it might be something different, right? But to me, I was like, okay. And then I started doing the calculations, right? I started looking at what I was worth per hour. And I figured out the first time I did it, man, I'm worth like I think it was like $180 an hour. So I was like, man, if I talk to 10 people in an hour, even if they tell me no, I'm still making money. I was like, talk about a reframe, right? You hear no, you're like, oh man, I got rejected. I was like, I'm making money every time somebody tells me no. This is cool, right? So the money, the picture of the Lamborghini, all those things for me were powerful symbolism for me. And it comes down to this, because we can talk about symbolism, but I'm talking about the association with you. Because other people, I can show them a Lamborghini, they don't care. They're like, oh, it's a cool car, but whatever. But to me, it was like, it lit the fire in me, right? So whatever that is for you, you need to find, how can I use associations to my advantage? Because the change in our physiological response and our emotional state is ultimately what gets people to move, right? When's the last time people made a change without being emotionally moved or inspired or something? Never. Your emotions have to be involved in it, right? And if we can't understand the mechanism, this literally allows you to inject an emotion in you. This allows you to do the same thing. This one's internal, this one's external. That's all it is, right? But we need to be very careful too from the negative side, right? Many of us might, and again, in the beginning, my family taught me people who make money are not good. That's what I was taught growing up. If you make money, you're evil. I have found, like I've told you guys, you probably heard me, I have family members who think I'm doing illegal shit to make money. Yep. They think I'm selling drugs or doing something like that, because according to them, because I didn't make it as an athlete, that would be the only way I could make it to make money. If you work for the government, right, you're like a famous actor or you're an athlete. Some of them, not all my family, but some of them still believe that. But associations, beliefs, I'm not going to change that in them unless they want to change it, but that's fine. But I understand that. So they associate money with bad. You think they're ever going to make money? Of course not. How are you going to become the same thing that you hate? It's not going to happen, right? So for us, we need to take a look at, okay, what associations are working in our favor? What are not working in our favor? So the car for me was great because that was an association that I could use to really help me move forward. And I started looking and saying, okay, the suit, why do I push away the suit and that image? Well, you know, you're an athlete. That's a stupid association. It doesn't make any sense. Why? People respond to people differently when they dress well. If you walk down the street in a suit, and they've done these studies. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. They did one where people would jaywalk, cross the street when they're not supposed to. When the guy in the suit did it, everybody fucking followed them. Why? Association. Oh, the guy in the suit must know what he's doing. Let's follow him. But then if I go like in a wife beater, they're going to be like, oh, the fuck is this guy? But then same guy, I wear the suit, suddenly they'll pay attention more at least. Why? Societal association is if you wear a suit, you dress up nice, you're successful. You're a person of expertise. You're a person who makes money. You're a person who moves and does business. Right? So from an image standpoint, that's a particular association. So this thing becomes powerful because we don't even realize that the littlest things make the biggest difference. Right? This is why whenever I film in the office, most of the time, not always, I'll do my best to have a button-up shirt or a suit on or something. Because I know when people look at it, regardless of everything else, it's just better that way. Yeah, if I'm filming in my car, I just left the gym, it doesn't matter. But overall, I want people to see the videos of us doing the property tours and the nice suit and all that, because there's an association there, right? Luxury. When you say the word luxury, there's associations there. You can't say you're a luxury agent and then everything about you and your image doesn't scream luxury, right? If you want to say that, oh, I'm the upper echelon product, right? I'm more expensive. I'm the Lamborghini of the industry, right? Of whatever it is that you do. You have to be able to demonstrate that. How you speak, how you carry yourself, your environment, right? That's the first thing that I noticed when I bought the Lamborghini. I was like, fuck, man, I need a better house, right? I was like, this fucking car is worth like half of what this house is. I need a fucking new house. But immediately, right? Like I got it and I was like, oh shit, a lot needs to change. I need to upgrade. So it got me to move and work harder, right? But it didn't become clear to me. It didn't jump into my work until I got the car. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this has to change. Because my house wasn't bad. It was upper middle class house. But I was like, shit, nobody in this neighborhood has a Lamborghini, right? I need to be living somewhere where everybody has one, right? It's out of place. So for us, a lot of times we don't even realize some of the negative associations that we had. And for me, the toughest one was money. It took me a year or two of really diving deep, going to events, reading a lot of books, getting around different people to really change my belief system around money.
A month do you read?
Oh, man. Back then, I was probably reading 3 or 4. Now I'm still reading probably at least two a month.
What kind of books?
Oh, man, all kinds, bro. NLP, hypnosis, mindset, ancient teachings on, different religions too, like Buddhism. I've looked into a lot. A lot of sales books. I've read a lot of Anthony Robbins books too. A lot of like taxing and wealth type books, like how to save money in taxes, all that kind of stuff. But just all kinds, man, all kinds. And now I'm finding that I'm rereading a lot of those books. And now that I'm more evolved, I get something different or something that I missed the first time that I read it. I'm getting something new reading it again that I missed.
What's your favorite book?
Favorite book? Shit. There's so many I like, man. There was a really good book. So Pitch, like a baseball pitch. Pitch Anything is a good book I'd recommend you guys get. Pitch Anything. Because it's by a dude named Oren Clef. But he talks about selling a different way, right? Because he understands selling from the perspective of the traditional stuff, but he speaks about it a different way. Pitch Anything. I mean, you might have heard it, especially if you guys start listening to the lectures. You'll eventually hear it. But it's a good book, man. It's a really good book. So, any questions on this stuff so far, y'all? Anything?
So truthfully, how do you really go about finding the identity and then shifting it?
Well, I mean, you need to look at your life and the current circumstances, right? You know what I mean? And that's how you really start. And again, it's not like you're going to sit down for 5 minutes and figure this out. It needs to be on your mind, and you need to figure it out, right? Pay attention to things that make you mad, make you happy, right? What, like your default, what do you do? You know what I mean? What do you think about certain things, right? And you'll start to put the pieces together of really what your identity is. Because when somebody asks like a deep question, like, well, who are you? How would you answer that question? And it might take you a couple of days to figure that out, right? To really see what falls into my identity. Like for me back in the day, it was athlete, basketball player. And anybody who attacked that or tried to say that I wasn't that, it would make me upset. That was just the core of it. You know what I mean? I want you to identify me as a great basketball player. And if you don't see that, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like that was my identity, athlete. And to this day, I still have people message me from back then. Man, I didn't know you were intelligent and all this stuff. I thought you were just a basketball player. Well, that's their perception and association with the identity of an athlete. You're not smart. You just run fast and you jump high, right? They automatically would assume, most people, that you don't have an intellectual capacity because you're an athlete, because of the association, right? Now, I'm not mad at them for it. Before, yes, I would get mad, but I didn't have this understanding. Now I don't. It's like, of course you would think that. That's what people think about athletes. I can't get mad at that. I don't, but I understand something they don't. If I sent this stuff to that person who told me that, they'd be like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? Cool. That's really just some super basic stuff, guys, on NLP, because like for me, this was an exercise that, to your question, right? Like really getting to it took me months to put together, because it's on your mind. You start asking yourself, well, what do I like? Who am I? What do I think about money? What do I think about relationships? What do I think about the real estate business? What do I think about sales? You know? And a lot of times you don't have the answer right away. I even started talking to my parents and my family. Hey, how was I when I was a kid? Because I don't remember a lot of stuff. And they would tell you, oh, we taught you blah, 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 or you were this way, you were that way, right? And if you start to see that when you were a kid, what they tell you, you're way different than you are now, well, something caused that. Something they taught you. Maybe you watched a show back in the day that you loved that put something into your, I mean, you never know, bro. That's why you have to explore this thing and really get down to the root, because if you've never done this, then you don't know. You just think you know, right? And then the outside is always an indicator. So let's say right now, right, you're getting into real estate and you're doing your thing. Where you find that you have resistance, like something is hard, you need to take a look, right? Because now that you're getting into this world and the sales world, that has its own set of rules and its own dynamic, right? And you need to shift your identity to include this. And if there's a resistance, then there's something off there, right? Something needs to change. Either a money belief, right? A business belief, entrepreneurial belief, I don't know. It was drilled in me too to not be an entrepreneur, get a job. If you don't make it in sports, you got to get a job. So when I was telling my family, oh, I want to get into real estate. Oh, you're fucking crazy. What are you talking about? You're stupid. Get a real job, right? You already tried that shit with basketball. I mean, I heard it all. But that was them attacking what they believed to be that identity, right? But if I believed it, right, then I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. I had to challenge that and say, that's what they did. I can live a different life. And I started looking and saying, okay, why do I think I can challenge that? Well, I remember being in college, right? I was on a scholarship, but we had what was called work study, where you had to work on campus. We had an on-campus job to fulfill our scholarship, right? So I'm going to work, and you know, the type of person I am, whether I work for myself or somebody else, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do a good job, right? And I would show up and I would work, and people would come in late. They would leave early. They would take longer breaks, you know, and I'm going above and beyond to do well. And after about a month, I go to the manager at the on-campus job. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, nobody does shit here. I do all the work. Everybody cheats and leaves early and comes late. Like, what's going on? And, you know, I very quickly, I was like, oh, okay, this is the corporate environment. Nothing changed. They got mad at me for saying something, right? And I said, okay, this is my real life experience of working a regular job. I was like, I can't do this shit. Because I would tell them, like, dude, pay me more, kick them out. Like, something's got to change, because I'm doing all the work. It's not fair, right? And then I started seeing, I was like, okay, so I was told that this is what I'm supposed to do. I don't like this. This isn't honest. This isn't ethical. Imagine me getting a job at a place like this for 20, 30, 40 years. I would kill myself, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of how I started attacking this stuff. I was like, so why would I do that? Why would I? Well, if I feel like I have no other option, if this is all I know, you look at the average person and say, okay, we're going to do a contest. Let's say I get a room of 100 people, average people. And I say, okay, the first person to bring me $1,000 wins. But you have to start now and go get it, like earn it. What are most people going to do? They're going to try to find a job, right? Oh, what's a quick job? They're not going to think entrepreneurial, buying and selling stuff, right? Most of them are going to think one way. That was drilled into them. That what my family told me, get a job. Well, the only way I can get money is, okay, I need to find a job or multiple jobs and get money. So, dude, there's things outside of that way to produce money. So a part of that is your belief system around money, but also in the core of your identity, it limits how you think. That's the crazy part, right? So again, there's no one size fits all answer for that. You have to really explore, what did I do growing up? What do I do now? What do I like, right? What do I do? And you'll start to piece together everything that's in the core of your identity and your belief system and your values, right? Then you can start changing it, right? Because once you identify it, it's pretty easy to work with, because you'll find out immediately, okay, if I want to be a millionaire and this is my identity and beliefs and values that I've written down here, well, shit, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And you'll start to change. So that's why I attacked money early on. I was like, man, my head is fucked up about money. Even when I was making money playing basketball, when I came back, I didn't have shit because I spent it like a dummy. I wasn't responsible. I didn't know anything about money. I wasn't educated on finances, but I had these beliefs in my mind that, of course, money's bad and this and that. So if you have a negative belief system about money, when you start making it, you'll get rid of it. I would be at the end of the month like, where the fuck is all my money going? I wouldn't track my expenses. I wouldn't track my income. But that's why you'll see people win the lotto and then go broke within a couple months or a year. And they have more debt than before. It's like, dude, how do you fucking win $100 million and you're more in debt a year later? Like, where did you even spend that money? But what's the root of that? Their belief system, right? They're not prepared, and they're not the individual who can handle that type of money based on, again, their identity, values, and beliefs. So what do? They get rid of it. They get rid of it. That's the crazy part.
And it's a stark difference being an employee versus being self-employed.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people get stuck, because a lot of their experience comes from being employed. And I'm reading this book called Why the Rich Are Getting Richer. I'm not sure when it came out, but I actually think it was probably like around 2016. And it basically broke down. It was written by the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I personally haven't read, but it was basically saying like the quadrants. Everyone is mainly in the employee quadrant, and then the next one will be the self-employed, small business, and the specialists. So people like real estate agents, lawyers, doctors, and things of that nature. I don't know if doctors would count, but I guess that's all I really wanted to say is that it's a completely different skill set. It's like going from reactive to proactive. Yeah. Not a lot of people are used to that.
Yeah, and at the core, everything has to change, Like as you start identifying all those things, like, okay, I'm self-employed. So what are some differences? Well, I set my own schedule now. I have to itemize the tasks to do. They're not just handed to me, right? Well, I don't have to clock in at 9 to 5. I can work extra, right? And they're so conditioned that even that idea is radical to them, but it goes back to this. They view themselves as that, So, but it's a process. All this stuff takes a long time. Like me getting good at reframing with clients took me a long time. Me finally accepting that the map is not the territory and not taking things personal took me years, right? Same thing with this. This exercise took me probably a good week to master, and then changing and identifying all the associations. Well, shit, that takes a lifetime too. It's just a process where you start catching it. So for me early on, I was like, man, so what did I do? I took the association of the suit and I had fun with it. That's why I have an orange suit, a green suit, my Miami suit. Like I have a ton of stuff. So even within the framework of wearing a suit, I'm having fun with it and doing it my way, Cool. Yeah. So that's pretty much it, guys. I think that's good for now. Unless you have some questions, we can wrap up. Because this stuff it's a lot. it's simple, it's a lot, but it's one of those things that the more you're aware of it and the more you play around with the ideas in your head, you'll start using it a lot more. And especially the pyramid, I think that's the biggest takeaway people can take initially, because once you work on that, it becomes very easy to change yourself and then be able to identify some of these things in other people and help them, you know? Like as an example, let's say somebody says something or you see an action, you can trace that all the way down to their identity. Like somebody running away from doing the business activities, I can trace that down to their identity. I would guess they view themselves as an introvert, not confident, and all these things that they would say, well, yeah. But they'll say, no, just tell me what to say. Dude, that's a symptom of the real problem that you need to change. Same thing with when people send me questions. Like let's say somebody sends me a question on Instagram or Facebook or email. I can just read the question and I already know all these things. Well, I have, maybe don't know it entirely, but I have a general idea of where they fit based on how they ask me the question. Something like, well, hey bro, I'm getting into real estate and I know I'm not going to be successful because I'm young. I'm like, why are you saying that? But again, down here, that's where they have a problem. They view youth as a negative. Could it be? Sure. But there's a lot of benefits of being young too, right? But they've already lost the game before they start. They just said, I know I'm not going to be successful because I'm young. Like, people tell me that stuff, right? But that's how strong this shit is. Now, I can give that kid that messaged me everything for free that I have and say, you know what? You don't have to pay for anything here. And he still won't be successful because he believes because he's young, he's not going to be successful. That's how important this shit is. So I would attack that in him and get him to change it. Then everything changes. Then he can use the tools that are accessible to him. But if he never changes that, he won't get anywhere. Because down here, it's, I'm not going to be successful because I'm young. And for people, it's different things, right? It's different things. I'm in the wrong market. Oh, the news. Oh, this. Oh, that. And they come up with all these things that are the issue. But what do people try to do? They try to handle that question instead of getting down to, okay, what do you believe? What do you value? And what's your identity, bro? We need to change that. And this is the key, is that person who sent me that message has to be willing to change. Because whenever you guys deal with this stuff, especially this, you need to be willing to change. If you're not willing to change, nothing's going to happen. It's the same thing in sales. If somebody's not motivated, I don't care how good of a salesman you are, they're not going to buy. And that's the problem, is agents will sell to people who aren't motivated. And when they don't buy or they don't sell, they're like, hey, I'm not good. It's like, no, they weren't motivated. You shouldn't have been selling to that person. It's the same thing, right? Somebody doesn't want to change. You can talk to them all day about change, but they're not going to change because they don't want to. The desire to change or to even consider change needs to be a prerequisite to doing any of this stuff. Just like if you guys do this for yourselves, if you're not willing to change, nothing's going to happen, right? Cool. Any questions, y'all? If not, I think that's good.
How many people do you think have you met that kind of see the world and their lives like how you do?
Very few. And this is just more of a studious approach, because none of this has to do with talent or ability. It's just an understanding of what is present and then what we can do with it. You know, I really think that a lot of people live their lives thinking that a lot of, like 80-90% of them is, and they can't change it because of a lot of things. Their upbringing, their religion, all these things that when you stack it up, they think that's what's created their values, beliefs, and identity. And they think that those things aren't malleable. You can't change them, but you can. You can. Identity, values, beliefs, right? I get made fun of by some of my friends back at home for how I speak, because I enunciate and I speak properly. But that goes back to that. You know what I mean? So they wouldn't even consider this. They would be like, they'll say things like you've changed or this and that, but they don't understand it from this perspective, right?
I think the biggest takeaway was like that example of, to become average, it's very easy, but then to become better than average. And I feel like that is a great representation of where I'm at. And that gives me a little bit more clarity on what it is that I'm experiencing. Because it's like, okay, I know that I'm above average, but I'm not great.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense. It's like, okay, now it's going to take way more than it did. It's not going to be the same amount of effort that it was to just become.
Yeah. And it could be like, we could even say 5. Let's say 5 is average, right? And let's say you get to 5 pretty easily. Yeah. But any leap and jump after that, you know, it might take you, as long as it took you to go from 1 to 5, it might take you to go from 5 to 5.5 or 5 to 6, that same amount of time. And you have to understand that that's part of the process, and it's okay. But the long-term payoff of that is you're way above them eventually, you know?
And so something I didn't really have insight on is, you know, people that start from, let's say, nothing, start from much less versus people that start with at least a solid foundation. It might just be in my perception or whatever they shared is that, you know, they were able to achieve much more when they started from nothing, as opposed to people that start with, you know, baseline. And maybe it comes down to the comfort, but I don't know, I guess.
Could an example of what you said be like somebody who considers themselves more of a talker or like naturally gifted to speak to people getting into real estate versus somebody who's like the opposite? And then you being like, oh, the person who had nothing actually ended up doing better than the person who said they were the talker, right? Something like that. Mm-hmm. Well, that there's a lot of pieces to that, but I think a big one in that is the person who comes in maybe with the thought of, oh, like I already am pretty good. They have this almost this entitlement, like, oh, I don't need to learn anything else, versus the person who starts with nothing is like, I don't know anything. I need to attack everything like 100% and learn it all. So it goes back to the reference that I say, to be the master practitioner, you first have to be the master student. And that person that starts from nothing will be more likely to be the master student than the person who comes in like, I'm already good, dude. Like I already know I'm okay, right? Like I'm already a good talker, so I don't need to learn all the sales stuff. Just let me talk to people, because I've heard that before, right? And I'll tell people I'm like that. He'll be out of the business in 2 or 3 months because he's not willing to learn. He thinks he knows it all, right? Because a lot of times those, like I even think of my first broker, his son. You know, I was like, man, had every advantage. His dad built it up from nothing, but his son was just a fucking loser alcoholic who did nothing, you know? He never had the drive. I would invite him to come work with me and he wouldn't do it. He would show, like one time he showed up to go door knocking with me drunk. I was like, bro, leave. It's fucking 12 p.m., bro, and you're drunk. Like, you know? Or we would agree that we would start at 9 a.m. and he would show up like at 12. I'm like, bro, I'm almost done. And you could smell the alcohol on his breath. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what place is open at 9 for you to go drink, bro? You know? Yeah, it's like, it's crazy. But that would be an example of somebody who grew up. I mean, it's fucking, that broker was filthy rich. The kitchen in the new home that I went to tour when they built it, the kitchen alone was like $750,000 or some shit they put into the kitchen. I was like, crazy. Big ass house on the hill, owned a ton of property, right? Same thing. But if you would talk to him too, he knew it all. Same thing. No, I'm good, you know. I already know what I'm doing. But I think it's more predicated on what I said, master student, right? The one who's more likely to be the student and really accept that hat and put it on is going to do much better in the end.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Something that you mentioned before is you requiring more from yourself than others do.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point, or what's something that would help somebody that's not, let's say, like me, that maybe just can't break that wall between just doing enough and wanting to do enough?
I think that came, I think when I said that, or when I say that it's more from the teacher standpoint, you know, but just generally speaking, if I'm going to ask somebody to do something or make a request or expect something from somebody, I guess it's more just like my ethics is like, how could I hold you to a higher standard than I hold myself? To me and my identity and beliefs, like that's just a law for me. So it's not so much like a factual thing. It's just, that's my code, right? How could I ask somebody to, you know, jump over the bridge when I've never jumped over it? You know, that to me, it's just not right in my eyes. So that's more of a code thing and ethics for me versus like a factual thing that I could teach you.
Right.
You know what I
mean? I
guess
I just meant more like the basic sense, because I understand that for a fact.
Yeah, and then I think from that comes when I speak to people, and that's my law, I speak with a lot more conviction. And when I make a request or say something or even ask for help or whatever it is, the message will be delivered much more impactfully, right? Versus I feel like if somebody didn't hold themselves to that standard, they wouldn't be taken as serious, you know? because they have to know that they're asking somebody to do. It's the same thing I tell people, like I talked to a kid last week, right? He's like, well, I'm not going to do the coaching because he was like asking me for a lot of help. I'm like, bro, like you need it, get on it. But he kept like complaining. And I said, look, right, you sit there. I was like, let's flip the script. You sit there with the seller and you expect him to pay you a full commission, right? He's like, well, yeah. I'm like, what makes this any different? You're requesting more, you want more, but you're unwilling to invest. What if the homeowner said, I want you to do everything, but I'm only going to pay you 2%? What would you tell them? They'd be like, oh, no, I would tell them, fuck off. I was like, how is this any different? I was like, you're being hypocritical. So that example right there goes to your question. To me, that's like the best real life example. It's the same thing with the agents who complain that, oh man, all these homeowners, they want me to cut my commission. But then when they go to the brokerage, what do they say? What's the split? It's the same thing. It's the same line of logic, right? But they're being incongruent. Where in one respect, they expect the homeowner to pay them the full commission. But then when it comes to them, oh, I don't want to give anything.
Like selective.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't work.
How much is the training, the distinguished agents?
A distinguished agent, the one that I'm doing now,
Is that the best one?
5,000 for the year.
5,000.
For the year, yeah. So I split it up now. So distinguished agent is mainly for like realtors who need to get their income to 150 or 200,000 a year, and it has all the basic stuff, right? Building your business, the systems, all that stuff to get you to making 150 to 200,000 in commission a year consistently. I have other stuff beyond that, but distinguished agent, most people go to that one to get 150 to 200,000 consistently in commission, right? So if somebody's beyond that, then we can have a conversation about doing something else, right? But that's the baseline, right? That's the one that gets people to teach the basics and get them to make over 6 figures a year, because that to me gets somebody in a position where they're making enough money now where they're okay. They can pay their bills, save up money, and now they're in a different position, That's the best one for the introductory stuff,
What's a good book on NLP?
I mean, you can get a ton, bro. What I would recommend, something you can do that would be helpful would be to get like your certification in NLP. That would be better. But I think even in the group, bro, the Facebook group that you're in, I think I've posted in the file section some recommendations for books on NLP. But remind me, dude. And then maybe when I get to the house later, I can film a video and show some of the books and put it in the group for you. Yeah.
What's the name of the Facebook group?
Oh, it's for a distinguished agent. He's a part of it. Yeah. But yeah, if you do want a book, there's someone like you can get an introduction to NLP book, like introduction to NLP, and there's a ton. And they'll talk about some of this stuff and give you exercises and give you more of a basic kind of understanding of it. And then you can do the certifications where they give you the diplomas. You do practitioner, master practitioner, and you'll go to the actual classes and they'll take you through this and you do exercises with people, because after you learn it, the whole goal after you've mastered your own stuff is to help people, right? And a lot of times when people come to somebody asking for help with their mind, emotions, it's all predicated on this. And the more you know this with yourself, the easier it is for you to help other people, because that's all it is. I really think the sales aspect in this, with me helping agents or whoever it is, I do well with it because I understand this, but I did it with me first. I fixed my own shit first. So now it's easier for me to help other people, And a lot of times, man, like even we look at distinguished agent, most of them are having success. Like all the people that you see in the group, you've been in it for a while, right? So you remember the end of the year review that I did? Like, hey, everybody report your numbers. You saw like people making 300, 500, 450, 600, right? So there's people doing well. But even those same agents that list all those big commission years that they had, most of them, I remember, like Michael in California, I think he said he made like 500K. When I worked with him first 2 or 3 years ago, it was all this. Once we started handling that stuff, his income shot up. It wasn't I gave him a magical script or something like that. It was that. And most of the people that have this growth, like Alex Hunter, right, in Texas, I think he's on track to make 350 or 400,000 his second year. It was this. It was that stuff, right? And the other stuff is real easy, because you guys have been in it, okay, I need to make the calls, I need to follow up, I need to have my system. All that stuff is basic. The level that you execute it at, though, is going to be predicated on that, right? If in my mind, I think I'm the businessman of the year, right? And I'm a millionaire, even though I'm not there yet, I'm going to work differently than a kid who says, well, I'm not a businessman, right?
those agents that you mentioned that they made 300, 500, they made all this money from expired cold calling, or
Most of them, yeah. Some of them no, but most of them, yeah. You know, and they all have their niches. Some of them do more open houses. Some of them do more expired. Some of them do more like community events. Some of them are more involved with their local schools and that kind of stuff. But most of them it's around prospecting and the basic stuff. Yeah, most of them. Yeah. Cool. Well, that's it, guys. I don't have anything else unless you have something. Let me see if AJ responded.
He said he's running late, but he can make the
Okay, cool.
2:15.